Hi friends, this is Carissa. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Inky Fairy Designs, and welcome to the Spread Joy Not Germs blog hop. This video is part of that, but most of the information will be on my blog. You can see that in the description below. Here is a list of our amazing 31 sponsors. To enter to win any of these prizes, please head over to my blog and find out the details on how to do that. This is the card that we will be making. I am really excited about this card. It is a slimline card. So I started by creating my card base, which is basically 8.5 by 7 inches, and I scored it at half. So it's 3.5 by 8.5 inches long. I am using these amazing new products from Sassy and Crafty, the Oh My God Sassy Girls, and the comic book stencil, which is so much fun. So I'm going to start with the comic book stencil and do a little bit of ink blending. I am placing it on a bit of cardstock that I trimmed down to be a little bit smaller than my card base for the slimline card. I pulled out some distress oxides and squeezed lemonade, pumice stone, and then I'll also bring in some black soot to just deepen up those edges a little bit. I'm going to start with the squeezed lemonade, and I just wanted to create kind of a light yellow background with a bit of gray edges, just to I was really inspired by like classic comic book. You know, they have those very vibrant colors. Your primary colors basically are really what makes all of that pop, and so I just wanted to create this background. I'm using the stencil and you can see I've masked it a bit with that purple tape just to keep it so that I don't get too far off the edges, but I do get a little bit on the edges that you can see here when I remove the stencil, but I fix that up at the end when I trim down this panel a little bit more. So I went ahead and finished that last rectangle. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my stamping. I'm pulling out one of my favorite stamps. Is the Detail ink from Brutus Monroe. I'm inking up this Sassy Girl. I just love this one with her top knot buns and her sassy lips. She's just full of attitude, and I love her. So I'm going to do some watercoloring today with my Karin Brushmarker Pros. The colors that I will be using today are, let's see here, Blush, Skin 1.2, Pale Pink, Pale Violet, Red Violet, and Cool Aqua. I am working on Fabriano Bright White hot press paper. This is 140 pound. I have been playing around with these markers for a little bit, and if you want to see a full kind of my opinion review on them, go ahead and let me know. Subscribe and like this video if you want to see more videos like this one, and so that you'll see that review video, because it is coming. I just wanted to play with them a little bit before I went ahead and published that whole video. But what I am finding is that these markers work best for me when I lay down a little bit of water first. So I'm kind of working wet on wet, and I practiced with these markers a little bit with this technique, because some water markers do not lay down pigment if the paper is wet. Like, you have to start laying down the pigment on a dry paper and then blend it out. But these really, when I found out that I could put pigment down on wet paper, I was sold and really loved them, because I find that they blend a lot better. You don't have that harsh line from laying down pigment and then trying to blend it out into your paper. And I found that the hot press paper works really nicely with these markers. I have worked on them a little bit with the cold press paper and found that I had to work a little bit harder, and I like to work I don't like to work as hard. So if I find a paper that works better, then I will just continue to use that paper, and so far the hot press paper is that paper for me. Okay, so I did a little bit of blending with the skin tone using the Skin 1.2, which is kind of a peachy tone, and then I added a little bit of the blush to kind of pink it up a little bit and make it not so orange. And those two blended really nicely together. And then I added a bit of the pale pink for the blush on her cheeks and just to give a little bit of color to her lips, which I will intensify a little bit later in the coloring. So you can see how I am kind of going back and forth with the water brush, laying down a bit of water. Now I'm not soaking the paper, I'm just really kind of dampening it for the pigment once I add that with the marker. And then I just keep layering it, and I find that working on a watercolor paper is best. I haven't tried mixed media paper yet, but perhaps I will do that in my review video to see how they do on that paper. So I'm just going to finish up the skin tone here a little bit, and then I'll move into the hair. And you're going to see in the hair when I lay down the a little bit of water to get that part of the stamp nice and wet. You can see how when I lay down the purple, it just starts to blend into that. And that is where I found that I can eliminate a lot of the harsh lines that sometimes happens when you're working with watercolor in a pen form. If you've been working with card markers and you have not been happy with maybe it leaving a little bit of a line, try wetting your paper a little bit first and then laying down the color. I've also found that some colors blend and move quicker than other colors. So a lot of the grays don't move as much, but I will talk a lot about that in the review video coming up later on my channel. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish up with her top of her shirt. And I am using that cool aqua color, which I also used on her glasses to give that little bit of shadow for the glass. I really like to do that with either a gray or a light blue. I just feel like it gives you that really cool glass shadow. Okay, so she's all done. I finished coloring her and I fussy cut her out. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish my little comic book panel. Since I set that aside, we were using distress inks, I wanted that to dry before I did my embossing. So I am stenciling with the Wow Embossing Pad ultra slow drying ink pad and using a Ranger sponge tool to do that. You can see I'm using my purple tape again, and I like to kind of tap it on my sleeve or my leggings to remove some of that residue because I find that the purple tape is super sticky, and if I don't do that first, I risk kind of ripping my paper. So now I'm going to sprinkle on this Old Glory embossing powder from Wow, which just happens to be one of our sponsors. And it is amazing. I loved it because I saw the red and white in the bottle, or in the bottle, and I totally did not realize that it had this blue glitter in it. So it was the perfect powder to use for my little uh, comic book look because I really wanted to play up those bright primary colors that we normally see in comic books. And this just totally wowed me. And I always say that when I'm working with Wow Embossing Powders, they picked the right name for their company because every single time I am totally wowed. And you can see the beautiful sparkle and texture from those different powders. It's just so cool. So for the middle panel, I wanted to jazz it up a little bit. So I took this stencil and it's kind of like that POW that you see in comic books. And I'm doing a little bit of tone on tone here using the Unicorn Magic embossing powder from Wow, and just kind of jazzing that up a little bit and adding a little bit more texture there. I don't end up stamping on this or anything like that. It's just really to kind of bring some more texture and dimension to the whole card panel because it's a long card. I mean, I'm used to probably, about a third of that really to try to fill up. But this slimline card is really fun to make. I'm glad I finally gave it a try. It was very simple to create. Here I am trimming up that panel. Like I said, I just wanted to get rid of some of those little oops spots that I had when I was doing my ink blending through the stencil. Just lined it up in my guillotine trimmer with that little plastic edge, and it gave me the perfect little border. So now I'm going to stamp my sentiments on this panel. I pulled out my Tim Holtz stamp positioner because of the slimline card panel being so long. I love this when I have something that goes a lot outside of the edge of my stamp positioner because it doesn't bend my panel, there's no edge there, and I can get the perfect stamping there. And I love this sentiment. It says, tell the bad stuff to kiss off. And I mean, how often do you really feel that way? Especially these past few weeks. I don't know about you, but it's driving me crazy. Just everything, 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 everything. I know it just is what it is, and I'm okay with that. But I'm just ready for, I was supposed to be in Florida right now, to be honest. I was supposed to be in Florida with my family, and we couldn't go. So I'm a little bummed about that, but I'm excited that, and I'm happy to be joining with other bloggers and amazing companies and trying to find some joy in the midst of all the crazy. So I put some foam dimensional behind my comic book little panel there, plus some more behind my girl. And now I'm just finishing it up with a little bit of stickles and Nuvo drops to add a little bit more dimension to that middle panel there. I just felt that it was a little bit too empty, and this just added a little bit more. You can also see that I layered my card with a piece of black cardstock as well as a piece of gold cardstock, just a little bit, a little bit narrower than the previous layer. I had a little bit of oops with that Nuvo drop, and I cleaned it up with a scrap piece of paper, and that finishes up my card. I love it. It turned out pretty much what I wanted in my mind for it to turn out, and I hope you enjoyed seeing it come together. I hope you're enjoying this blog hop. Spread joy, not germs. Be sure to check out my blog and leave your comment there if you want to enter to win one of the 31 amazing prizes from our incredible sponsors. I would love your comments here on YouTube as well, but your comments on my blog are the ones that will get you entered. And then for all of the details, just head down to the description box to head over to my blog. You can check out the Hedgehog Hollow and Catherine Pooler for even more details. That's it for me today. Until next time, stay safe. Bye.